excitement's gonna be at its highest level the first time people are in there. And I know there's gonna be a lot of things going on, but that's the time when you wanna do it all.
Yeah.
It's new, they're excited, and people will want to, say, if they're gonna help, I'm in now. I mean, it's gonna be a great.
I mean, the whole
I
event
mean,
should
there
start an
were
hour earlier,
questions.
to do all the ceremonies.
Yeah.
There were questions
Announcement.
raised last night at the Booster Club meeting, asking, is the first game, is there a dedication, like, is there something happening?
Probably not a dedication the first game, you should
Or
do that.
like anything, because it's the first game?
I don't know.
It's not
First
complete yet, so
It's
they would be dedication next year.
I think that was first there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I guess they just, I don't know, they just, was it gonna be anything at the beginning of the game, because this is a first event in this capacity there?
I don't know, I say once it's all finished, you do the ribbon cutting. and-
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing,
when everything's done, they'll do
you
the
wait till
dedication.
phase two.
Maybe we do.
Yeah, we use the,
There's a lot
we
going
use
on
the
in
high
this
school
month to
before
get
we
that
actually
all
dedicated.
accomplished.
We were on it for a while because we wanted to make sure everything was done.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
But
have
at
to
the
be-
same time, before they're
But there ought
there,
to
you
be-
want this on the
But
announcements,
there ought to be
you
an
want
opening day event or opening game event.
something.
Right, and if we can do something that's
So is it
simple,
home?
inviting people and just, ahead and then having, right, and have the if you're excited, donate money.
Because they're not writing a check, they're actually looking at what they can do.
Especially, we'll have the appearance of a working process with all the porta pots and the tents and all
Yeah,
that
and
stuff.
I mean,
Hey,
for most of these
We
people,
need
it's
help.
their first
Yeah,
opportunity
exactly.
to see this, to see what's being done.
I don't know, where you were talking to, well, I mean, so we have the Rotary Club represented, and you were talking to the Lions and
I
the
did.
Owls.
I did mention to the Lions, weren't particularly happy. There are a lot of longtime popular fans.
Oh, okay.
So while he started out being a little bit negative, by the end, we decided that because it is for students, it is for student athletes, that they would probably get on board somehow.
Okay.
You'll take that first game. The first event, and I think people will. It's beautiful up there. Not even done, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think when the team starts to get excited about it, I mean, all we heard in the discussion of this was, we don't want to go, you can't make us go, why are you doing this to us? And hopefully, when they now announce that they love the place, let's finish it, let's make this Pennridge
I
proud.
think, haven't
They
they?
already have.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've already changed.
They're already there.
I know,
Yeah.
but we have to communicate that to the rest of the community, that, because all they saw in those meetings were the team
Right.
coming up and these passionate, please, don't do this to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you'll see other passion, please don't make us go back.
It's true, you're right.
It's true.
They
Right
need
now,
to,
that's
the
what they
community
want.
needs
They
to
don't
hear
want
that.
Yeah.
Right.
All
You
right,
mean
Yeah,
don't,
I just
do you
wanna,
mean, do you mean don't go back to play the one game on the 31st? What did you mean?
I don't know, I'm thinking that there's a chance they want to stay there, but I don't know, they're
Yeah,
just.
I mean,
That's what I heard, yeah.
yes,
I'm just
yes,
asking.
I have a
I
son
just-
playing, and that's what,
Yeah, go ahead.
I've had parents come to me and say, we don't want to do that.
And so have I, so that's probably what'll happen.
Coach
But I was
Holland
just-
said that, we don't want to go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I just read the calendar that came out with the district, and it was in writing that there'll be a game played there on the 31st. I never saw that before a few minutes
Which is
ago,
senior
so.
night. It's their last home game.
I understand all
Which is
that,
senior
so I'm
night,
just
so-
saying I saw it in writing, but then
Yeah.
I'm hearing under the surface that, why would we do that? Why spend all, so.
oh, that's what it says, that the game on October 31st is gonna be played at.
Dr. Radigan's
At
letter
the copy
does
of
say
it.
that.
That
they want
was-
games
that
on
was
October 31st.
The proposal.
That was the proposal.
No, I know, I just
Yeah.
saying, I just never
But
saw
I
it in
think-
writing before. So now
Oh,
that it's
okay.
in writing publicly, but
Actually on
the
a calendar,
Pardon me?
actually on the calendar.
On the calendar, but then the conversation under the surface, or even now above the surface, is that why bother doing that? So I was asking Bruce what he meant by,
I hear the rumblings.
Yeah.
so does everybody.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to get comments from the public, if you have any, if you wanna share
Anybody want to go
thoughts.
first? Hi, Claire Steinberg, Percy. You were talking about the opening day. You should invite all the sports teams that play, not just the high school, but middle school. with football players, cheerleaders, the band members from middle school also, also the high school. I think that way you're inviting them all in to come see the new stadium, and again, maybe it'll generate some revenue besides just tickets for the parents or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and like, if you send people a special invitation, then they're more likely to
Right.
come.
Yeah, because you're mentioning Deep Run, and I'm like, okay, but what about middle schools? The schools are part of, they're gonna filter in here eventually.
Right.
So invite, the color guard, the cheerleaders, the football players, the soccer,
3 middle school teams.
Yeah,
South,
and,
middle, central.
we were planning,
North.
like, even elementary schools, we want to invite, like, let the elementary schools know that this is what's happening, because their children are gonna be here someday,
Eventually,
yeah.
eventually.
Right, but just
So-
making sure you include all the sports,
Mhm.
the bands,
Yeah.
cheerleaders, the color guard,
Right,
or
well,
else
they'll all
might
be
be.
there.
Well, the
for the
band, the
game.
cheerleaders.
Well, the
will
senior,
all
the
be
high
here.
school, but also middle school, they
Yeah.
have guard and cheer, right?
Yes.
Well,
Along with
the
football.
guard is the winter, I don't know if we don't wanna get it, the indoor guard at the middle school.
But they have it,
They do it,
throughout
they
the whole
practice in the
year.
fall?
Yeah.
They start in middle
Yeah.
school,
It's the same girls.
don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we wanna get into, it's hard to invite the winter
I have no idea.
teams, I mean, I guess really we should be inviting,
See, you can't go there?
I don't,
I don't know, is it on here?
yeah.
Do we have enough room for all these folks? Jeff and I were talking, there's like room for 1,900 cars. That's if we take every spot that we have, that means if we don't have 3 people in the car, you're gonna have cars all over the place.
It's good.
Well, we want to pack.
Right, yeah,
We
we
want to
have 5,000 seats. 5,000 seats.
5,000 seats.
Yeah, so,
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Like
good
a
problem,
traffic
yeah.
nightmare, the community might not, whatever. I'm trying to make everybody
Yeah.
really favorably impressed, and if we have some kind of nightmare, it's gonna take away from some of the,
Yeah. On the other hand, it may prove that we may have to spend the money or take the alternate to create that drive all the way out to those parking lots, which is an alternate, and add the third ticket booth to get people out, to get people out, and to get people out. So that just might prove, when bids come in February, what we may have to do.
right.
I mean, it's just another way of looking at it.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is all retail that you're talking about, we're going to do this with the masses and introduce ourselves and what we're doing. You do have a backroom aspect to this project. And my question would be, you've got costs for Joe's time, you've got costs for printing, your blank pavers, your advertising to raise awareness, your labor to do the paving if it's not done by the students, installation costs perhaps of different things that people pay for, like painting the bleachers with the class and all that. Cost of signage, postage, the Harris Advertising Agency, I guess that is, I'm not real aware who that is. Are you going to track those costs and put them against what you raise so that you know what you actually net accomplished? And if you're at the first football game, you're talking about wanting people to get excited and, choose to donate. I haven't heard you all say anything at all about setting up accepting credit cards or checks, or are you going to accept cash? And if you do, what will be, how are we going to account for, cash that's collected that night? I personally would not accept cash. I think that's not a great idea. If somebody's going to make a donation, they should, want to take it off their taxes and have documentation. And you need receipts, that kind of thing. So I'm not hearing anything about approving the backroom part of this project.
Well, we did talk about the budget, and we don't have that yet, so that we're gonna talk about it at the next meeting. the
Okay, but
budget
backroom
for-
is like, how do we accomplish the nitty-gritty cash collections, tracking it over 10 years? Is it going through the business office? I assume it would be, but I don't know that.
Right, but it might go through the foundation, because then.
And if it goes through the
donations-
foundation, how do you document, what the foundation received? Because they don't have to turn over funds. once they get those funds, at least in the past, they have treated that as their money. They've taken, if you recall, one of the very first things was the payroll deduction, and then they collected pennies with the students in the grade school. So that was money that was coming out of the district. And once they got it, they decided how it came back into the district. So if the foundation collects $2 million, I personally, and I've mentioned this at the last meeting, and I'm going to mention it again, I want the debt that we incurred as taxpayers to build that stadium. I want every penny that is raised to reduce the tax so that I don't end up me paying for the stadium and having no idea what happened to that $2 million. So the PCEF needs to make a commitment that if they collect those funds for the stadium, they hand over 100% of it. And that once it's handed over to the district, we apply it to reduce the debt that paid for the stadium. Otherwise, you're not paying for the stadium, you're just using it to raise money. So my question is, when are you going to take care of the back room stuff? And you need to know in your pamphlet, you need to be able to tell the people, you know, we gladly accept your contributions, and this is how you make it. We have a special fund, or this is a, you know, we'll accept your credit card, we'll accept your checks, we will provide, you know, you'll get a receipt for your taxes. Please discuss this with your accountant. You can't tell them it's tax deductible because you don't really know, individual by individual, whether it is or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Was it said, I missed it if it was, I'm sorry. I was reading the calendar, but was it said on the brochure, will it say makes checks payable to PCF? Is that how the brochure will be?
However it's done, it'll, I mean,
That hasn't been decided
yeah, we have to put down how do you donate. So
Okay.
we'll have to make sure that's clear.
So that's like unbelievably mission critical. Huge. It's like huge. Because once people start writing checks to an entity, then it becomes something that is legal, and there's fiscal fiduciary increased responsibilities for the board of the foundation as those funds grow. So I'm just trying to get some clarity, because what I did not hear is where the funds will go. And what I think I just heard with my question is that we're not sure right now. It will be decided by the night of the first game. Because if the brochure is printed by then, I would guess it would say make checks payable to. So that's one critical issue. And then I guess I don't even know, and I can talk to Joe offline after the meeting, about the foundation's board. You know, where are they at with their discussions of being the recipient of the funds? And I guess the final question then, and I don't need any of these answered now, but just something for food for thought. In some organizations, when they raise money, when they have a big capital campaign like this, like hospitals or the Pennridge Senior Center or Pennridge Fish or any nonprofit, there's usually some incentive to raise the money, and then when we raise these monies and the goal's met, then this is the prize, which might be a building or, you know, a new addition or an elevator, that the money comes first and then the prize. So in this case, if I'm seeing and hearing things correctly, it sounds like the project is already agreed upon in a vast scale with both architectural firms and plans, and, you know, the building already sort of phase 1, phase 2 yet to be decided on completely. But if this project wasn't being supported through some community fundraising, if we hit a target of 30% of that goal in 10 years, or 40%, or 80%, is there a connection between the project in its best sense of if it's all the way funded, all the phase 2 items, and is it because this money, in other words, there's a disconnect in my mind as both a citizen, taxpayer, and somebody who fully supports, you know me, education and funding. But what's problematic for me is that I don't see the connection between the money raised and what's needed for in other words, if we don't raise this money, this 2 million, it sounds like this is still happening.
It is.
Is that accurate, or do I have it misunderstood?
Well, no, I mean, one thing that the board has said that the design is being, or the bid specs is being created for the whole entire project.
Right.
But the board will decide in February. I think the bids will come back, the timeline is that they'll come back in January, late January, early February, then there'll be a facilities meeting to discuss it, and then the board will vote. So it could be depending on what the prices are and how much, what commitments there are in fundraising. I mean, that would affect the board's decision. So I mean, nothing is, so I mean, I don't know how.
And am I hearing it right that
There's
the
a lot of
commitment, the
unknowns.
goal is 2 million over a decade? That the goal for the project on fundraising is $2 million?
Right,
Net, not gross, net all the costs to do the fundraising.
yeah.
And that money that's raised then could take a decade, but the things, whatever we decide upon in February, or what the community decides upon, that will not be contingent of necessarily about those pledges. It'll be contingent upon the board's sentiment in February about the budget and where that money is coming from. My understanding is the money is already here. It's been borrowed, or it's in a fund that it's not, in other words, we don't need to raise more taxes to build the project.
We have
Is
to
that
raise
accurate?
taxes to pay the debt.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm being clear, I'm kind of tired of that, but it just seems there's threads that, it's an interesting dilemma, because in most nonprofits, it's like, okay, we want to do something, we gotta go raise the money. Okay, we got half a raise, now we'll do it.
But it's similar to what you said, you were talking about Palisades, right?
Yes.
And their foundation, and they took 10 years they made a commitment, and then they took the 10 years,
Exactly.
but the stadium
Was built.
was already built.
And it wasn't, delayed payment, it was paid for. So I don't know the legal, I don't know if they paid, if they signed contracts, if they gave away their first son, who knows what they agreed to do if they didn't meet their commitment. So just some questions, food for thought. And finally, part of my obviously passion for this is that the energy that we generate for this kind of project, that we see similar levels of commitment for other needs in the district for children and their families. And God forbid if I'd sit down someday and add up all the millions of dollars, including the cost of the field, and the cost of the stadium, and the cost of the concession stand, and I don't even want to throw a number out, but it's really huge. It's really huge. And I went back and looked at the minutes in 07 and 08, so what the stadium cost then. So I'll let that lie there, but that's where I want to continue to discuss over the decade. It's like, okay, we're going to have all these needs, and this is one, and I'm supportive of it because I know what this project can do for human development with kids. It ain't about football. It ain't really about football. And I hope that we continue as a board to see just the same amount of hope and interest in raising money for other needs. Period.
In a roundabout way, though, by raising this money, we are freeing up other dollars for non-athletic.
Exactly. I get it. I know. Thank you. I do know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mrs. Furlong?
You have DeHuey, I guess, coming up with plans for this building up here, but at the earlier meetings, DeHuey said that their estimate, the 2.4 million, is based on the plan that was done in 2008. Why are we deviating from that plan, and are there additional fees because of the deviation?
I can't answer
I
that
don't really
question.
understand that.
No, we had a plan done in 2008.
But it's not.
And Mr. Spatafora said in the LGI that his estimate on how much it would cost was based on using that plan. Now, why are we deviating from that plan? Why are they redoing a building plan?
Well, there wasn't a plan, there was a footprint. Phase 2 was a footprint. Here's a picture of what phase 2 or 3 will be someday. And we're using that same footprint.
You're
That is
using the 2008 plan?
Footprint.
What is a footprint versus a plan, then I don't understand.
Plan sounds to be more detailed. This was strictly
Concept picture.
Well, we
concept
paid
picture.
$400,000 in 2008. What did we get for $400,000?
In 2008, I have to think about that. I don't know.
We paid the firm $400,000 for the football plan, the field plan, let me put it that way.
I don't have a comment on that.
Well, do you have those, what was submitted to the district back then?
More than likely, yes.
Okay.
So I mean, that's, I mean, some of those things people would have to research and, you know, it seems more
I
of a
think-
facilities question, you know, when Mr. Spatafora is here though, I mean.
I would expect my facilities person to know the answer to that.
Well, not necessarily
Your
off the top of
question-
his head.
Your question
Well,
is,
he would know whether or not there was a plan. That was a
But for 6
huge
years
project.
ago, that's-
Yeah,
that's
that was a
fine.
huge
You know,
project. This is a huge project.
I would recommend for a question like that, that you would email it and then,
Okay, I will bring it up at the board meeting, so just, you know, be aware that I am curious what we paid $400,000 for in terms of a plan in 2008. It was referenced by Mr. Spatafora at the meeting in the LGI that that was the basis for his estimate for the total cost of this project, so he's relying on it. But yet now I see that you're coming up with a different building plan, so none of that makes sense to me. And it also, in my opinion, probably raises costs that we will have to pay them to develop a new plan besides using the 2008 plan, which we paid $400,000. So I will bring it up at the board meeting, and if you want, I will give you documentation and an email, if that makes you, you know,
okay, that's fine. And I think it would be better as the facilities.
no, I'll bring it up at the board meeting, because there's other people that want to know the same thing. What happened to the plan that we had in 2008, for which we paid $400,000, and now we're going to incrementally pay more for the same service?
Okay, well, I don't think Mr. Spatafora will be there at the board meeting, but
nor was he part of that in 2008.
Yeah, he wasn't here.
Or the-
His firm was, and he represents his firm. Ask
Are
them
you
to send a
talking about
representative.
When we did phase one, the turf field, is that what you're talking about?
That was I'm talking about what was done in 2008, for which we paid $400,000 in engineering fees.
All right, Mrs. Furlong, we don't have any information here. This is a
That's fine.
fundraising.
I'm
Okay.
bringing it up
Okay.
and
thank
saying
you.
that this is an interest. People want to know what happened to that money, and we'd like to know, are we paying double for the same service?
Okay, so we need to set the date. Do we have a date?
I think we set 2 dates last time. We want to have this information soon, so we can talk about that.
Right, so it's the week of the 15th, but what date do we pick?
From the front?
I don't have it. What date do we pick? Then the 18th.
We looked at the date that was available.
The 18th is the tech, isn't it?
You couldn't make.
Well, not the week, not next week. It was the week of the 15th, and the 15th is the academic performance.
16 is the PSBA negotiations meeting, and some of us will be involved from the support staff.
Yeah, so, and that'll also take up the room too.
Yes, 17 is available, I have nothing on the 17th.
That's my birthday.
Don't come.
I remember when I was 30.
Yeah. How about this? Suzette, is the 18th, is that a VOTEC meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take working.
And so the 16th, the meeting is in here?
No, you,
PSEA, I think.
we didn't know whether it was a home match or a away match or that.
I think I have it as,
The
it's
PSEA building?
at the union,
What's the-
PSEA.
Well, if that's the case, the room's up. Let me check on that then. So 17th,
So the 16th or the 17th? So we'll-
16th, I'm gonna check 16th and 17th and get it out to you all. And let you know check with the.
Okay, so the next meeting will be the 16th or 17th, and so we'll post that and let everybody know.
And we'll bring back advertising budget, have some tentative plan for collecting money.
And I know PCM's having a meeting this weekend, so we can get some more information from that group.
Logistically, would there be a problem with the district creating a stadium fund and just collecting the money through the district? I mean, we don't have to complicate things.
That's correct.
If the foundation is gonna be a complication,
It
you
may
know, I
not
would
be
love
in their
that they be
bylaws.
involved, but if it's gonna create problems that have to be worked out, then
They can help in other ways, if you
Sure.
might be, because even writing your check to the school district is tax, people do that all the time. Yeah, so we decided, but let me come with some recommendations on the Kathy.
Okay, so yeah, so we can have that on the agenda, great, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. All right.
If,
Did you?
go ahead.
Can I say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm slow, sorry.
Yeah.
Just to remind, for the first game, I know we had said about inviting people. Well, it is middle school band night, so there will be middle school kids that play the
Oh, that's
instruments with the band. Also, the cheerleaders have a clinic the Saturday before on the 20th, and any child who goes there are invited to that first game to cheer with the cheerleaders the first quarter. So those people will be there. And there was one thing, I know we were talking about the pavers and whatnot for trying to get as a suggestion, the booster clubs for the different organizations.
Absolutely.
Right.
Can you do something like, since a paver technically only costs maybe between $3 to $10, okay? And we're making suggestions of $100 or whatever. Can you get something that help the booster clubs? You want them to get into this to help sell and fundraise to do these things, that maybe you give them an incentive that, okay, if the booster clubs members or whatever they sell, if they can sell so many pavers, or each paver that they sell, that they would get a portion of that to go toward their fundraising events. Because a lot of things are because of this going on, you know, other organizations who are trying to do fundraising, they're going to have a hard time. Because they're going to say, oh, well, we're giving to here, you know. So to give an incentive for these kids to go out there and help, that if doing a paver, if they sell one paver, okay, give them, if it's a $100 paver they're selling, and the profit, well, what you take off excuse me, the cost of what that paver was, and the profit that you have there, and you give them a portion of that profit to go toward their fundraiser. You know, you say, the cheerleaders are selling pavers to go for the school. They're selling the pavers, there are $100 a paver, but the cheerleaders themselves will get back from that $100 that you pay toward their fundraiser of, let's say, at the most, $25. You don't think? No, I'm just, it's just a suggestion, because it's
But maybe not 25, maybe it's 10 or something.
right, but that was just a suggestion, because that would help toward their, you know,
it's a good idea. to
Right, well, you know, and
combine-
right, and it gets more people selling them.
right,
Yeah.
and
And that's
get
what we
more of
need
the
to get-
community involved, because
Right.
you'll have, you know, whatever it is, a soccer player who's trying to sell, or their booster club is trying to sell the pavers, you know, cheer, the band, hockey, soccer, football, everybody.
Basketball.
And they say, we're doing this as a fundraiser too, we get we're getting a profit back from that. So if you help us, if you buy this $100 paver, you know, not only do you get your name put there, but we will get something back.
Right.
And that would help.
Elementary.
So the community's doing
The
two
teachers,
things.
elementary schools can get something too. Yeah.
Right.
And the community's helping two things. Getting the pavers for the field and helping the team, like baseball or whatever they're selling.
And you know what, if we sell more then, I mean, then
Well,
you
yeah,
sell more, and so
so-
you're, yeah.
I think pavers are gonna be the big sellers.
Right, because everything else is a big item,
Right.
big money item. And, you know, Joe Mo can't afford that kind of thing. I mean, they're gonna be lucky if they could put together $100, maybe a family or everybody pitching in to do $100 paver.
Right.
But the child that they're buying this off of to do this, you know, they know it's not only go for here, but we're helping them out also.
Right, yeah, I don't know if we wanna do that with, like bleacher seats as well, I mean,
I would hope not.
right, just do it with one thing, it keeps it simple.
I don't think anybody's gonna buy a bleacher. I think what's happening is classes are gonna get money for a row.
Right.
Just, we can put it down as an option.
The paper's different.
Plus, you have to make, this is my seat,
For every
the
student.
Bruce Brevard seat.
And I'll give
Bruce.
$200.
Yeah,
Two
okay,
seats.
all right, thank you, that's a great idea, thank you.
Excuse me,
That's fine.
Thank you, all right,
All right, thanks.
we're good, everybody, nothing else, okay, all right, we are adjourned, thank you very much.